So Christan and I met because we were both in a marketing workshop, right, with one of my mentors, Charles Lee, who leads Ideation, which is a very successful marketing company, right?
Yep.
And we met there, and then I said I could really use your help making sure that we get the third location right. Because I don't know if this is true in your experience, but in my experience, nothing makes me more insecure than about how well I'm doing with like what I'm actually putting online. Does anybody else like marketing and stuff like that makes me so insecure because I feel like there's always I'm what they call an exennial. I'm not a millennial, and I'm just at the tail end of Generation X. Any exennials in the house?
That's why we get along so well, man.
Exennials, like we feel like we're like everybody expects us to know how to use, you know what I mean, like how to build websites. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how to use Snapchat. I'm an exennial, but so I get insecure about it.
Well,
but
just an insight on that, when he asked to do this video, he's texting me asking if I'll do Skype with him, and I'm like, I don't use Skype anymore.
yeah, he's all.
It made me feel okay. I'm not that.
How do I download 2010?
Yeah,
Get a time machine, go back to 2010.
Yeah.
All right, come on. Can we give it up for Christan, all the way from Orange County, Director of Marketing, Saddleback Church. Cool. Is that the right mic?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
We're good? Oh my gosh, Bakersfield. Hey, I'm from the Central Valley too, so it's cool to see where you guys are from. I just want to start by saying thank you for taking time out of your day and coming here, because you're investing in your education. All leaders are learners, and your investment today is just showing that you're a true leader. So, all right, we're going to talk about ABCs of marketing, and something that changed my perspective of when I was in the marketplace in sales and marketing, and I was asked to lead a team to do marketing at a church. It felt kind of weird. Like, what? How do you do marketing? Like, how do you do that? So I'm going to walk you through that today. And my hope today is that I just give you something that some practical things that you can take home and do. I see this as the beginning of a conversation. It's not, let me just teach you a bunch of stuff. I've got a bunch of slides up here. You can download it and see it later. No, I want to be available. So this, I'll give you my contact information. And I truly mean that. I'm a person, I'm a practitioner. You know, I'm not a public speaker professional. I'm a practitioner. And so if I can help you practically and how to implement this, whether you're been in for 4 years, 2 months, couple months, I want to be able to help you. So, but before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about who I am. So my name's Christan. My parents trying to be creative, not Christian, Christan. So I'm married. This is my wife here, beautiful wife. Her name's Allegra. We've been married about 13 years. Crazy story, and just how I met her. The short of it is, after 5 months, we eloped and didn't tell anybody. But we've been married about 13 years now. In October, it'll be 13 years. Best thing that I ever did in my life. Wouldn't recommend doing a fast track like that, but wonderful. God was on it. It was great. I'm also a dad. So I got 2 boys. Got a 6-year-old. He's almost 7, wiggly teeth coming out. And I've got a 10-year-old. And that's the next slide. That's these guys here. And I'm Portuguese, but I don't know what happened. Both blonde hair, blue-eyed boys. I don't know what happened there. But the next slide I'll show you was something really cool. So I'm on staff at Saddleback, like Justice said. I'm the marketing director. And but that's only a piece of what I really do. That's like what I do as a job. But I just started seminary. I'm trying to figure out, okay, God, like, what are you going to do with me as a pastor? I don't see myself necessarily leading a church, but I don't know. You know, doors opened up for me to go to Saddleback, and that was a condition that I said if they were going to help me go through seminary, then I would join. And so I'm at the beginning stages of that. And what's cool is I get baptized. So this picture here is my oldest son, Ashton. And, you know, I'm nervous because it's my first night of doing baptisms. And so the way we do it at Saddleback is before, probably most of you guys do this, but before you baptize, you say what baptism is. So I've got a couple guys I'm going to baptize. I'm in the pool of water with a crowd of people and just let them know, like, hey, baptism is just an outward expression of an inward commitment you've made. It's not anything except for celebration. It doesn't save you. And as I'm doing the spiel, I see my boy walk up and go talk to the table, and I'm like, what is it? We've been talking about this for a while, but he was too shy, didn't want to get baptized in front of a bunch of people. And so I say, hold on a second. I just stopped right in the middle, like, hold on a second. I think my son's getting baptized. I'm freaking out. So I go talk to him, like, oh, excuse me, pardon me. And sure enough, he's going to get baptized. So I'm like, buddy, we've been talking about this for months. And he goes, yeah, Dad, just hearing you, today's the day. And so in October of last 2 years ago, I got to baptize him, but it was my very first baptism. So that was like such a cool thing. Forever I'm going to have that story of my first baptism being my son. So has little to do with marketing here, but I wanted to share that because that's still a piece of who I am. I'm a dad. I love being a dad. I love being a follower of Christ. I love being a husband. A little more about me is I'm a do-it-yourselfer. My wife gets annoyed with me sometimes because if something's not working, and I'm like, oh, no big deal. We'll figure out, put an outlet right there. I just love learning. And so I'm a do-it-yourselfer. And so for me, what I've learned that God has, how he's created me, is I'm the 30,000 foot, which we'll do some of that today, but I'm also a 1 foot. You want me to maintain Excel sheets? You know, I love building cars. I built a couple different cars, a 65 Malibu. Spent 3 years sanding it, building the engine, painting it myself. The only thing I had to do is the interior, but I never washed the car once I got it done. So I sold it, started another one, get a 62 Falcon. So just a little bit about me, but probably the most predominant thing is I'm a bridge builder. And I know people use that all the time, but what I mean by that is in my personal life and relationships, some context it seems like a game, but it's also when you hear people that are in a disagreement, I immediately go to what is that common ground? You got to start in common ground and then work out from that. And so I do that with relationships, and I do that at work, and I think that's why I like what I'm doing in marketing, because marketing is being that bridge. So in marketing, you've got your product, you got a person, and you're trying to get them to communicate together, right? So you got to be that bridge. So one of the mechanisms of doing that is marketing. I'm sold on this concept about marketing and bridge building because it applies in the church, outside the church, in your personal life. I'll show you today how you can use that into a practical step into how you can market to your audience and connect with people. But here we go. What is marketing? All right, let's start with what is marketing. All right, according to the American Marketing Association, marketing is an activity, set of institutions and process for creating, communicating, delivering, exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. So in the marketplace, how do they do that? Well, here's the formula that marketers take in the marketplace. By the way, these are a lot of slides here. We're going to give them to you. Justin's going to show you how to download these. We're going to go high level. We're going to go through a lot of stuff. That's why I want to start with, when I started with, this is the beginning of a conversation. I'm hoping you just get the concept. Before I dive into it, I want to say I'm a Dave Ramsey cheerleader. When my wife and I got married, we had a tremendous amount of debt for student loans, close to $90,000. Total income combined was $50,000. We're living in Orange County. How does that work? I don't know. God provided. 7 years, we got debt free. So why am I Dave Ramsey cheerleader? Because I see and I experienced getting debt free that I thought was impossible. I saw this mountain like, oh my gosh, like how in the world are we going to pay this off? Because our rent is $1,500. Okay, we got to eat, all that stuff. But it was practical steps of stuff that some might seem like common sense, but it was just practical steps. Do this first, then do this, then do this. So today, I'm probably going to show you some stuff that you're going to be like, okay, cool, I get that. But if you don't do them in order, it's going to be chaotic, okay? So just want to make sure that you understand that. We're going to try to break it down pretty easy, but how the marketing works in the marketplace is they start with R&D, research and development, right? So they spend tremendous amount of time understanding who their audience is, trying to figure out what to develop, how they tweak this. They do case studies. They bring people in and have them try out products. I don't know if you've ever been part of one of those surveys. It's pretty cool. But at the end of it, after they figure like, okay, we got something, they're building a product. Okay? After they have their product, then they spend lots and lots and lots and lots of money on advertising. Right? He's not, and he knows. Lots of money goes into advertising. And then they're looking at the ROI, so return on an investment. So what's the return that they're getting on that investment? And they're analyzing that stuff all day long. But they're doing it all for what? to get a customer. The problem is, we're not here to have customers. As a church, we're not here to create customers. We're here to create communities. Okay? All right, advertising in the marketplace. Let me give you some examples. So, in advertising, again, research development, you're wanting to spend a lot of money in advertising. So in the marketplace, what they do is they make things look really good, right? Look on the right. They're trying to make that burger look really good. But what you get is what you see on the right side, the left side. Right? Nothing like that. Where's that pickle? It's like one little pickle right in the middle, right? Same thing with Burger King. What you see in advertisement is there on the left. What you get on the right is what you really get, right? Most attractive angle with cheese, slightly puffed up. I've heard that they actually use hot glue and other condiments, glue for mayonnaise and what have you. So advertising's a liar, right? People are trying to model this in the church, but the advertising is not trusted. You know, Harris Poll, they released a study that showed that 84% of millennials don't trust traditional advertising. So traditional advertising, it's like what I just showed you. And that's like plethora of different ways of advertising, but the root of it is because they don't trust it. You're trying to sell something that you really aren't selling. So that's the problem with traditional advertising. So my question is, why are we looking at the marketplace and replicating it here at the church? That's a problem. Because we have people in communities that are trying to really express who they are in a light that really isn't them. So when they show up or when they buy, it's like, wait a second here, what's going on with that? Now, I'll give some examples out here in a second. For me, I say, why you look at the marketplace when I think Jesus is the best marketer of all times? Okay? Why do I say that? Well, currently 1/3 of the world's population are his customers. His ministry has lasted over 2,000 years. He's got the #1 bestseller of all times. And he started with 12 people, right? If that isn't the best marketing ever, like, come on, show me something better. Really? No, he's the best marketer. So why are we looking at the marketplace? Why aren't we following his formula? Because he was very particular on who he was after, how he did it. You know, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but to prove this point is, he didn't start with, hey, come and die. Drink my blood. Eat my body. No, it's like, hey, come and see, come and see, come and see. Hey, come and see, right? So I think we need to follow that. That's what I'm here to tell you today about is the ABCs of biblical marketing. The cool thing is biblical marketing doesn't have to just be done in the church. It can be done anywhere. If you have a true, authentic product, we have the best, you can probably take this model into anywhere else. All right, so what is the ABCs of marketing? Again, as we go through this, and just like the alphabet, start with A. You want to go to C real quick, because that's what you're excited about. Start with A. And Justice was telling me a little bit about, some of you have done some of this work, and so I'm hoping that this can help you take it to the next level. But assess your audience. You know, Jesus did this. He said, go among the Gentiles, or enter any town, or don't go among the Gentiles or any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. That's in Matthew. Like Jesus was saying, hey, don't go over here. I want you to go there. Specific target. He knew who his audience was. I mean, he even said, I didn't come here for the righteous. I came here for the sinners. Right? It would have been easier to come for the righteous. Those guys are plentiful. He wasn't after them. He was very particular who he was after. Okay, so how do you assess your audience is you got to look at a few things. But you got to start with the demographics and the psychographics. I like to say it's the stats, demographics, and the story as the psychographics. Demographics, you can pull those from anywhere. I mean, if you got someone in your congregation that's got a realtor's license, they can pull this stuff like all day long. You do a Chamber of Commerce. I mean, there's multiple avenues to get this stuff. But the demographic is the age, gender, how much they make, how educated are they, occupied, what ethnicity. So we have the Census Bureau does this every few often. So that's the demographics. But that's only one piece of who a person is. Like if you just looked at my demographics, you wouldn't know anything about my personality. You have somebody that has exact same demographic as me up here, you're gonna get something else. Psychographics, that's how they respond. That's how they interact. Their personality, their attitude, their values. I got that stuff listed there. Their fears, their challenges. So the stat, demographics, and their story. That's really your story. These are psychographics. That's your makeup. But we're at church. We take it a step further. Stat and story is good in the marketplace. Man, we want to know how they are spiritually. What's their spirituality? Right? We got to know who we're talking to. We're professional communicators. Whether you're behind a computer, on the phone, talking on stage, doesn't matter what you're doing. We're communicating something every single day. As a church, we're communicating in our community. Whether you realize it or not, you are communicating when you don't think you're communicating. So we got to know who we're talking to. And this is one of the most important things. Do they believe in Jesus? Right? Because I'm not going to start with, come and die. No. Come and see. Check this out. All right. Before we move on, I want to say, if you miss this point with assessing your audience, you're missing it. You're missing the whole deal, because this whole stage is you got to be an expert of your community. Your community. Not Freedom Church community, not Saddleback's community, or anybody else's. You got to know who your community is. I say it like this. Do you want to be a church in your community, or do you want to be a church of your community? We are called to be churches of our community. We're here for our communities. So if one of our campuses, right now, Saddleback, we've got 19 physical locations. And so if any of our locations, faces of the totally extreme, is what I love talking about this, at this level, this is reality, right? This is reality, and I love talking and working with people at this stage and where they're at with the church. It's not about butts in the seats. It's about hearts and life transformation. And if there's anything I can do to help, I know I'm into okay, what the heck, 19 campuses? I remember before I started at Saddleback, I was like, what are you guys selling over there? How do you get that? Right? So I know this is so extreme, but the purpose of what I'm saying is we're experts in our community. You got to be an expert in that community. If you took one of our campuses, picked it up, took it to Bakersfield, exactly how it is, doing the same behavior, same language, everything, it just wouldn't work. It would die because it's not a community of another town. It's a community of Lake Forest or Rancho Capistrano or whatever we got our campuses. So let's say, assess your audience, be an expert. So step one, if you don't know who your audience is, we'll talk about how to do that. But you got to start there. Otherwise, you're making a church that's going to attract people like you. If we did that, we'd attract people that are all older white guys that look like Rick. We don't want that. All right, so we're going to go to brand. B stands for brand. When he saw Jesus pass by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." Right? Why did I pull that up there was because marketing is saying who you are, but branding is separating yourself so people understand who you are. John the Baptist, hey, that's the Lamb of God. That's branding. Branding is just distinguishing yourself from everybody else. One of the first assignments that God had us do on earth was branding. You know what it was? Name all the animals. Right? That's branding. How do you separate yourself from everybody else? That's branding. All right. And Jesus also, he wanted to separate himself. And how he did that was he just started, like I said earlier, with, I am the way, the truth, and life. That was radical. He was saying who he was. He was trying to distinguish himself, but that in and of itself, if he just went around saying that, that's just him doing some marketing or advertising, right? All right, so build a brand. What's the difference between brand, marketing, and all that stuff? Well, you've got marketing that says, hey, I'm a good guy. See? Then you got advertising. Hey, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. Hey, I'm a good guy. I've got banners everywhere. I'm telling everybody I'm a good guy. PR is, hey, I'm a good guy. Tell people, oh, yeah, he's a good guy. But branding is when somebody understands you and they say, like, oh, that guy, he's a good guy. So it's not who you say you are, it's who people say you are. And if people aren't saying about you what you think you are, there's something missing here. It's crucial. You know, I don't want to say that Jesus was doing market research or not, but he walked around saying, when people were asking him, like, hey, who are you? He would say, well, who do they say I am? Right? Maybe not market research, but it could be, right? He pointed it back to what people think of him, not what he thought of himself. He knew. All right, so when it comes to brand, what makes up a brand, quite simply, is 4 different areas. It's your product, your identity, experience, your culture. Those are the pillars that make up your brand. So the product is the service that delivers on your promise. Identity, your logo, environment, marketing materials, stuff. You know, it's your identity, what you look like, your logo. Is it cohesive? Your experience, it's kind of like that customer service. And you got your culture. That's really how it plays out, how people are experiencing it in you. Who are you people? So to put it simply, a product is what you do. Your identity is what you look like. Your experience is what you feel like. And your culture is how you get it done. Right? All right, so we got 4 pillars. So we've got a product. That's what you do. Like, what are you doing? Your identity is what you look like. Your experience is what you feel like. And your culture is how you do it. Again, by the way, I love this interaction. If it's just me up here talking for this whole time, it's going to get kind of boring. So if you guys got questions, like, what the heck does that mean? Like, I had 2 cold brews on the way here, so I could very well just pass by stuff. All right, so if you got questions, raise your hand, let me know. I'll answer it. But these are, the 4 pillars that make up your brand. Yeah. Without people coming in? Yeah, we'll talk about how. But before we do that, let's talk about, I'll show you a perfect example. Good question. So this question was, can you build a brand without anybody coming? I'll say yes, and I'll show you a practical example, a couple of them. But before we do that, we're going to talk about what happens when these pillars are not in alignment. What I mean by that is if you're missing the mark on one of those, you're not delivering on your brand promise. You're setting expectations and communicating with people who you are, what they can expect when they come there. And so when it's misaligned, you're not delivering on your brand promise. You're wasting resources. And your customers, they can become detractors. What I mean by that is, so in February, I turned 40. I was called a millennial the other day. I was like, yeah, makes me feel good. So anyways, we went to Mexico for my 40th birthday, my wife and I. We had a week there, paid for it, show up, look at the brochures before we get there. We look at the website. We're like, yeah, week, no kids. We're going to be in Mexico. This will be awesome. We pull up. They had like hot towels. They're putting on our hands and stuff. So I was like, man, this is legit. I never sit in first class. I've seen them do that there. So I'm feeling pretty good. We check in. Mr. Parreira, we've got this room. We upgraded you for free to this suite. I'm like, I didn't even say anything. I go, okay, keep it coming. This is great. Everything up to this point was matching, what it looked like. Oh my gosh, I was blown away. It matched everything that they put in the expectation of the brochures, the emails they were sending me. They're great at communicating when my check-in was, all that stuff prior to me going. The problem is, as soon as I got the keys, Mr. Parreira, one last thing, come over here. Mr. and Mrs. Parreira, you want some wine? Trying to give us some drinks. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? All right, whatever. So we go. I kid you not, it was like 30 to 45 minutes of them trying to sell me a timeshare. I was like, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this come for free, sit through a 2-hour thing, Like, wait a second, what's going on? So, great experience. No, bad experience. Everything else was great. So, I, up until that point, was going to be like a cheerleader for this place. Like, you got to go to this place. But what happened is they didn't deliver on their promise. Now I'm a detractor. Because you better believe it, I was on Yelp saying, watch out for this dude, because he's going to ask you to come here. Just say, no. And I was watching people do it, and I'm like, dang it, they've been here before. They know the game, shoot. So anyways, customers become detractors when you don't follow through. Real time, last night, I'm texting with one of my campus pastors because somebody left this review on one of our platforms, and it was calling out people. They used a fake name, and the IP address was like Columbia or something. It's like, well, you can't do anything, right? It's a customer review. It's my word as a brand and a business against theirs. So I can't say like, well, hey, this person actually never came to Saddleback and they weren't part of this ministry and they're calling these people out. I'm as crazy like, this person's bad, but Rick, he's amazing. And this person is so good. I'm like, is that their sister? Like, who filled out this review? Well, the point is, I can't do anything about it. In some platforms, I can't even respond publicly, but that's part of what my job is. If somebody responds on one of our platforms, it's my team's job to make sure that people know, hey, we're on it, we hear you, we're going to find out what's going on. This platform, we couldn't do that, so now it's just out there. Bad for us. And back in the day when people had bad reviews or a bad experience or whatever, they would tell like 10 to 12 people. And I remember 10 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, they can tell 10 of their friends, guys, if they don't have a great experience or you don't follow through on your brand, they're going to talk to 12 people. It's like, oh shoot, like just in 24 hours, I don't know how many thousands of people could that have gone to, Kind of extreme case a month ago, we had somebody that did the same review, a bad review. I think they were saying Rick as something or other, I don't know. But they put it on every single channel that they could. So that reached a lot of people. That's a problem. So you can't get around it, even if you do everything perfectly, which we can't, just so you know. Even if you do everything perfect, you're going to miss it. And people are going to talk about it, and they're going to tell a lot of people. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good question. Well, one, Jesus is number one no matter what, right? So he's asking who's our product. So our product, man, at the end of the day, what we're selling people is a life transformation. That's got to be your goal. It doesn't matter how you get people there. Well, it does matter how you get people there, right? Integrity, truth, love, biblical, Bible-based. But your end product is Jesus. So everything should have a pathway. We'll talk about what that actually means. Yeah, we're going to do Q&A. Yeah, this is good. But our product, so if you look at your product, man, the big C. We're going to talk about this in a second. Man, if you think your church is for everybody, you're missing the mark. Jesus is for everybody, but you are not for everybody. I'm not going to attract everybody in how I communicate, what I look like, the style of the music that we're going to do at Saddleback. We're not for everybody. That's okay. There's a church right down the street, and we've helped plenty of churches start in Lake Forest, which is our biggest campus. We will help other denominations. It doesn't matter. We have preferences. We want people to come to our church, be part of our community as a family. But, the point is our product is multiple things, but the priority is Jesus. You can get people butts in seats the wrong way if you're focused on the wrong thing, and you're missing the mark. We'll talk about that in a second. But all right, so that's when your brand is misaligned. They're going to tell everybody and their mama, right? Even people are like, oh, show them my feed. Like, what's this? People are ruthless. All right, so what do we do when our brand is alignment? What does that look like? Well, when your brand's aligned, you accomplish more with less. It's less energy. You deliver your brand promise. You're using resources effectively, right? Your customers become advocates. An advocate is just somebody that's talking about you, showing you, when I go to a nice restaurant, if I wouldn't have that bad experience in Mexico, I'd have been their advocate, and they didn't even do anything for me except for make a great experience, culture, and all that stuff. But you want your customers to become advocates. That's another key point. You got to know how to make advocates. Because we're in a society that I showed you that advertising is a lie. For a majority of what people are seeing, it's a lie. So you have to create advocates that experience your brand, that know you. Then they're talking about you, right? Branding. They're a good guy, right? And you want your staff to become ambassadors, which are just equipping people, right? So a good example of this is Starbucks, right? Not everybody loves Starbucks. I like more coffee. At Saddleback, we have this contract. We don't drink alcohol, and so everybody's just a coffee person. It's like, switch what you're drinking. And so we're doing pour-overs and all that stuff. So I love coffee, learning a lot about the notes and single origin and stuff. I feel kind of weird this part of my life thinking about coffee. But Starbucks, what I love about it, it's consistent. They look a little bit different depending on where you go, but man, they deliver every single time. If I'm going to have Americano with white chocolate, it's going to taste the same because they purify the water. They spend a lot of time making sure their brand is in line. And the cool thing is people want good things to talk about, especially now. Look around our society. What are people talking about? All the bad stuff. They need good things to talk about. People actually want to talk about good stuff. They don't want to be Debbie Downer. They want to go to the party and be like, oh my gosh, that was a great experience. Check this out. I found something that you don't know about, so let me tell you about it. People want to share the good news of what's going on. Be an advocate. All right, so before we move on to the C, we have assess your audience, be an expert in your community, a community church or a church in the community, right? We want to be community church, whether that's in your name or not. You got to be community oriented. Build a brand that reaches your audience. All right, and C, create a community. So you have to assess your audience first. You're going to build a brand that's informed by your audience. Then you build a community around your brand. So that's why you got to do them in order, A, B, C. If you start with this and you don't know your community, you're trying to create a community of your own, you're missing out. I mean, Rick talks about this quite a bit. He helps, I don't know how many thousands of people start churches, but it's pretty cool. And he always talks about one of his friends that started a church, and he capped out about 200 people, but he came from, I think, Texas, where he had thousands of people. So it's like, wait a second, well, you're a good communicator. It's not competency. Like, what's the deal? What's going on? And Rick's like, do you know who your audience is? He's like, yeah. Yeah, a bunch of people, families. He's like, no, do you know your audience? Well, he didn't. The problem is this guy used intellect terminologies when he taught, but his community were high school graduates. So he was missing his community. So literally, Rick partnered with him. They moved 3 miles away into a different neighborhood, and now they're blowing up. This years ago, I think he said it was over 1,000 people. By simply moving where they were because they were focused on their community. They knew what they had to offer. All right, so just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. I said this earlier. It's all about serving your community. It's not butts in the seats. It's not having the big numbers. Because, your church should be relative, your numbers should be relative to the community that you're in. right? If you're in middle of nowhere in Bakersfield, not a second, you're not going to have the amount of people. Our Lake Forest campus is so big because all the people that are there, right? The problem is people look at what we're doing and they try to replicate it and they get disappointed and they like get heart crushed and they see it's more than a Saddleback, other churches. Don't look at other people. Look at your neighborhood. Okay? Again, in Matthew 20, he came to serve. So serve your audience. I said a second ago, but it's all about advocacy. You want to serve your community, so they're talking to their neighbors. All right, so we have a life-changing product, Jesus, life-changing product. You want to create an opportunity for people to experience your product, then you can create a believer. Like you want people to fall in love with you before you propose to them, right? Let people experience who you are. This will answer your question about this. How do people experience who you are if they're not coming to your church? Well, I'd say probably a strategy problem. If you're doing everything, it's like, come to me, and I'm going to show you all these awesome things that I do on a weekend for 2 hours, you're missing your community. A good example of this is Freedom Church. So Justice right now is doing this 1,000 shoe giveaway. Perfect example of how somebody can experience who Freedom Church is without stepping foot in here. We want them to step a foot in here. We want them to donate. We want them to be a part of something. But we're not starting with like, hey, come spend 2 hours. We're going to go to a school. We're going to give these shoes away. It's going to be awesome. No, people drive on a freeway looking at a billboard. You want to get them to go to a call to action that they can see what you're about. So I know he's doing a billboard. He's actually did something amazing. It's the focus of his church right now. It's his homepage on his website that's talking about this initiative they're doing. That just shows the priority that he's trying to reach people. I mean, that was amazing when I saw it the other day. The point is you want people to experience your brand, and this is one example where he's going out in the community. People are donating their shoes, so that's one way for people just to give. You know, with a lot of nonprofits that are popping up, they're taking the role of what the church should be doing. People want to give money to good causes, but they're giving it to these nonprofits that are doing stuff. They're doing the exact same thing we are, except they're not saying it's for Jesus. They're loving the community. CrossFit, great example. Man, you want to talk about community? I don't know anybody that talks more about what they do in advocacy than those guys, right, and gals. I work with a couple. It's like, yeah, I did like a burpee. I don't even know what they're saying. I'm like, dude, I'm like, when I just walked up the stairs. You know, I can't do CrossFit. That's a community. They've got it figured out. They have brand alignment. So again, going back to the 1,000 shoe giveaway, you got to create opportunities like that where people can experience who you are, where you're stepping into the community without starting with come and die. Get to know me. You're going to fall in love. You're going to fall in love. You know, they will. But that's Jesus' job, right? That's not our job. Our job is to communicate. What we do at Saddleback, we have a peace center. It's got a food pantry, English as a second language classes. We've got legal advice. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff under this umbrella of peace. Well, we serve over 100,000 people that come through here that just have a basic need to eat or to speak English. But what we do, people that come in from the food pantry, we don't just give them food and be like, thank you there, come back next week, grab some more food. No, we have our volunteers that are very strategic, walk with them through the pantry, show them the list, help them gather it, walk them out to the parking lot, and before they go, they say, hey, can I pray for you? They say no, it's like, all right, well, hey, I'll say a prayer while you're driving away. So last Thanksgiving, my team, we volunteered for Thanksgiving because we did this deal. Somebody donated so many frozen turkeys, it was insane. And so we had a bunch of people from my team to go, and it was my turn, right? We were like waiting in line, so like, man, there's a long line. I'm going to go talk to people. I'm an extrovert, man. I want to make friends with everybody. So this lady comes up, she's got a walker, and so I'm like, great, I get a we're going to take our time. This will be a little bit slower. So I got more time to like talk to her. I'm like, hey, Jesus, I didn't start with that obviously, but I just got to talk to her and said like, hey, where are you going after this? And she's like, yeah, I'm just going to go run some errands. Great. We get to the car and I said, hey, is there anything I can pray for you? She goes, yeah, can you pray for my daughter? She's mean. I was like, yeah, she's mean. Is she mean to you? Yeah. Like, oh man, that's not good. You seem like a nice lady. All right, I'll pray for her. What's her name? So we pray. Please don't let the lady be mean to my daughter. And I said, is there anything else? She goes, yeah. Well, I don't know. Never mind. And I go, no, what? She's like, well, I've got brain cancer, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to live, and I'm actually going right now to go get the checkup. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what, are you kidding me? I was going to let you go and pray that someone's not mean to you? She was holding on. Why? Because she didn't trust me yet. She didn't know that I cared about her. I talked to her. How many kids do you have? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like crying. I'm like a baby. Like, she's going to die. Like, oh my gosh. So I just ended with like, hey, hope to see you next week. Let me know how it's going. The point is providing opportunities for people to experience. Half the people, probably most of the people, aren't going to walk through Saddleback doors. That's okay. But if it ignites hope or inspires them to like investigate what church is, doesn't matter whose church it is. Honestly, we're about the big C, big church. We're all going for the same thing. We're not competitors. Break that out of your mind. If that's something that you've got in your mind of like, hey, I'm seeing what they're doing, like I got to beat them, so I'm going to do some advertising that targets the keywords of that church so they see my advertisement. I mean, come on. Don't do that. It's true, right? I know people that's doing it. It's like, whatever, So going back to community, you want people to have an opportunity to experience it. Okay, so let's say, why I can't give away 1,000 shoes? I don't have a peace center. All right, what can you do? Is there a park in your neighborhood? Do a potluck, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. If you show people that you're a community, people are attracted to it, right? Remember back in your college days, my college days, I would go to where the crowd was. See the long line, like, hey, what's going on over there? All right, I'm going to go over here instead of across the street. It seems like everybody's over here. So that's why they pay people to stand in line because a crowd draws a crowd. So you can do stuff like go to a park. You don't have to wave the banner of like, we're saving everybody. Come over here and you're going to know Jesus and get saved. No, let them fall in love with you. Christ is going to shine through you guys. Okay, so you want to make a believer. Another thing to make a community, it's all about advocacy. So how do you create advocates? I think it's an easy formula. Healthy communication channels and shareable content. Okay, so a healthy communication channel. What's a communication channel? What I'm doing right now is me standing on stage is one communication channel. Right? If I'm a host, I'm communicating something. If I'm the worship leader and I'm praying at the end, or Jay came up and he's talking about, I love that, man. We in a library worshiping, that was great. I was getting chills when he said that. I was like, yes, so awesome. One communication channel. If you've got an email list, communication channel. You're doing advertising. I mean, there's tons. Anything that you are communicating, that is a communication channel. You guys got it? You got to have a healthy communication channel. What that means is you can't abuse your communication channels. So an unhealthy communication channel is that we learned this early on. We were using our email list. We have all these people, and it's like every ministry is sending emails. So we send like, well, we have one that we're talking about what's going on in the church as a whole, but then you have people that are just jumping on lists and emails left and right, left and right. Well, we got blacklisted from almost all email providers. Yeah. Because we were abusing it. People are like, spam, spam, spam. That's the only way you get blacklisted, when your people that are receiving your stuff are marking you as spam. Well, they're marking us as spam. It's like our people. These aren't people in the community that we're not buying lists. Do not buy a list of people. Ask them for permission. to give you their information, right? Well, we got blacklisted. It took us a lot of work to get out of that, but it forced us to have a good strategy. Got to have a strategy of what you're doing. And sometimes it's telling the people, like, everybody wants to be in the bulletin, okay? We know that. But you got to know how to say, no, thank you. What we can do, this is what we can do. Over here, our pastor is not going to communicate that you have a car wash afterwards when you're looking for 20 people, right? Everybody wants that. Justice feels that. Everybody wants to have whatever preferred communication method they deem is effective, right? It's all about advocates. So a couple of ways that we do that is our stories page, like on our website. So shareable content. You guys got healthy communication channels? You guys understand what that means? Okay, so healthy communication channels. Also, just a little bit on that. How do you find out what is healthy and what is abusive? You got to figure it out. You got to find out what your audience can bear through that communication channel. If you see people unfollowing you, unsubscribing, that's a red light. If you don't see people opening your emails, indication. Do testing. There's so many different ways that you can see how and adjust your communication channels. But let's go to shareable content. Again, it's all about advocates. Why? Because I don't want to say who I am all the time. Like if I just talked about how I'm a great husband and I'm a great dad, and every time you saw me, I told you that I was doing that. That doesn't mean anything. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, Christan, he's a great dad and husband. Man, I want to model after this dude. No. But if you see me with my kids, hopefully you would think that I'm a good dad, right? So what we did for shareable content, one avenue, which we do multiple things, and that's totally dependent on your community of how they want to be an advocate voice. It could be shareables online or whatever, but we created this whole stories section of our website. So stories meaning testimonies. We put the story on the back of our bulletin. We still do paper bulletins. I'm trying to evaluate how to not do that because there's a lot of them. But we put our stories in the back of the page and we point people to our website. We do a little blurb, kind of reel them into our website because it's not a dead end, right? A bulletin is dead end unless they do the call to action, what you're asking people to do. So we want people to go to our website because then they'll look and be like, okay. Then they're clicking around, they move around. It's like, yeah, you're in. Most people go to our stories page outside of anything we're doing on a weekend to point people to it. People in the community go to our stories page, and it's the most visited section of our website always. More than I'm new here, more than baptisms, our events. We got a ton of events going on. They want to know stories, life transformation. In the marketplace, people are picking up on this. And I can show you tons of examples of how people are doing a great job of telling a story to create advocates. One of them, I don't have any daughters, but found this example I thought was amazing. So Barbie, in 2015, I think, maybe 2016, they did this campaign. You can be who you want to be. And so how the video went was, you have this classroom, this college classroom, and this little girl walks out. It's like, okay, class. And she's probably like 5 years old. Okay, class, this is what we're going to learn about today. And then it switches to a guy bringing in his dog, and a veterinarian walks in, but it's a little girl. And she's like, okay, what we're going to do here, And at this point, you don't know what it is. But she walks through this whole story, and at the end of it, it pulls back into those same girls that are playing with those figures of being the teacher, being a veterinarian. It was all about, reimagine who you can be as a woman or girl. Imagine who you can be as a woman. That was great. The best storyteller ever. That conference that Justice and I met, that's where he showed it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's like the best story. You captured me, and I'm not, you never buy a Barbie, hopefully, So anyway, shareable content. Going back to our testimonies page, shareable content, let me tie that in real quick, because our testimony page is very, that whole section gets a lot of traffic. But if it's just traffic, it's kind of like butts in the seats. Who cares? We want people to become advocates. So we create shareable pieces that they can take those stories and put them on their channels, and they can tell people about it. So share this on Facebook, share this on Twitter. I mean, and there's tons of ways to do this. This is where I come alive, and that we can't I can't dig into standing up here, but there's things you can do. Like if you got a WordPress site, they've got plugins. You highlight text. As soon as you let go, it says share. So if you have transcripts on your website or something you want people to share, demonstrate how to do that. So there's cool things. These platforms are cheap. I'm talking like tens of dollars, not hundreds of dollars, tens of dollars. Some of them are free. But it's all about becoming advocates. Going back to the example of the 1,000 shoes, you want people to be advocates. Justice wants people to be advocates right now. Of, hey, we're doing this thing in August. Come check it out. But the problem is the church like lands there all the time. Like, hey, we want to send these people here. Hey, give us money. We're going to do this. Hey, we're going to do this amazing thing. Like, can you contribute your time or money? But people want to know where that all went. Not because they're selfish and want to know about where their money went. They want to know the story that they're a part of. So advocacy isn't just about promotion. Don't confuse the two. You can use promotions to create advocates and people to experience your brand. But after this 1,000 shoe giveaway, next couple weeks, he's going to hopefully, we'll speak it out, there's going to be new people coming here to this church. So he's got to talk about what they did. Hey man, for a month, we were asking you guys to donate shoes. Here's some photos. If you don't have a big screen, fancy screen like this, overhead projectors or whatever you got, you know what I mean? Just tell the story. You don't need to always have a visual. You just need people give sound bites. Don't let technology be a barrier for you to communicate. You don't need fancy screens and all those things. Those help with communication, but they're not essential to communication. I prefer them. I'm visual. But you can easily capture me by just telling me about, hey, you want to know something cool? What? You know? Advocacy. All right. That's ABCs. Assess your audience. Be an expert of your community. Build your brand. Create a community. All right, here's what we're going to do. We learned about the ABCs, right? The assess your audience, build your brand, create a community. So we're going to do a demonstration for those of you that are more visual. So we're going to start a church today. It's called, let's put their logo up here. Dove Bird Church. All right, I need to have a lead pastor. No, you're the worship leader. Tight jeans over here. Come here. You're the worship leader. Come on, back up, Justice. We need a lead pastor. Here you have a nice voice. Dude, your voice like, let's all come, boys. Dude, I love that voice. All right, we need to have so we got a worship leader. We have a senior pastor. We need to have an executive pastor. Who's good at saying yes?
Executive pastor has to be good at saying yes.
Yeah. All right, come on up. Yeah, executive pastor.
Why are you picking only me?
Well, nobody's raised their hand. All right, here we go. How's it going, Christan? All right, what do we need? We need someone that's doing children's. Anybody? Perfect. Come on up. Perfect. How's it going? All right. And let's pull you three up here. We'll say that. You guys are in ministry. We're just going to pull you up here. In ministry. All right, I'm trying to keep it in between these wedges like they instructed me. All right, so here we go. This is Dove Bird Church, everybody. Give it up. All right, Dove Bird Church is in the community. They love what they do. So on the count of three, guys and gal, in one word, tell us what Dove Bird Church is about. 1, 2, 3, loud.
Jesus.
All right, let's try that again. In unison, same word you said. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. All right. Did anybody get that? Jesus, because that kind of drug out there. Good. This is when your brand is not aligned. People that are actively listening can't even understand what you're saying. You've got their attention. You don't know what they're about. So, all right, Dove Bird Church, we're going to do a little rebrand. We'll update our logo. Instead of Dove Bird Church, that doesn't really speak to our community. Let's update our logo here. We're going to rebrand to Love Bird Church. You like that? Little 90s Apple treatment to that logo. All right, so what we're doing is we went through the whole process
of creating a brand. So we have a brand guide. Talks about what we're about. So don't show anybody what's inside yet. So we went through the process of who is our audience. We really got to know you and you. We spent the time to assess our audience. We spent our time building a brand that was going to speak to you because we have your attention. We want to speak your language. So we updated our logo to really reflect who we are, to speak to you. All right, so on the count of three, did you guys all read the brand book? That's the first thing. We went through training. All right, brand book. This is our brand, everybody. You got it? Okay. So on the count of three, now let's tell them what, under this rebrand, what this church is about. So with your voice, I want you to say out loud on the count of three what Lovebird Church is about. 1, 2, 3.
Love.
Right? People in the lobby doing their pour over could have heard that. And they're not actively listening. All right, so that's just a demonstration of what aligned brand is. All right, thank you for your help. That's all I need you for. Thank you so much. You can keep those. Those are your momentums for the day.
So does tenure in ministry.
Okay, so that was just to prove. Thanks again for your help. When you don't have an aligned brand, it's chaos. And a lot of people do this. In the church, a lot of people do this because they see what are other churches doing, and they try to replicate it. We were just talking at the break. He follows a couple of churches, and he's noticing that, like, they have thousands of followers, but they're only getting, like, 2 likes. Well, I would imagine, without knowing anything about them, it's a strategy problem, and it's probably that they're not communicating the right way to the right people, or they're not paying to play. Facebook is like that. But that's a demonstration. So let's go into how does Saddleback Church do this? I'm going to move this over. That's cool. All right, so how do we do it at Saddleback? Well, we start with our audience. Hey, right? We model this. This is not just something I came up with last night and just telling you about it. Like, we actually do this as a campus, each of our campuses. So how do we assess our audience? All right, so every campus that we have, so I'm the marketing director, so my team, when we launch campuses, our first thing is to assess our audience. So what we do is we build the city profile. And we'll see it up here, what we make. So my team makes these. And what we do is we're looking at the demographics, the psychographics, spirituality of the community. And what we consider our community, because the community is like, oh, all the town. No, remember that example I gave where the guy just moved his church a couple miles away? So what we use in Orange County is we use a 10-minute drive radius. For us, we know we can reach past that. But our community, we want to be of the community. We want to know who our neighbors are. So for us, it's a 10-minute drive from our campus. This is an example that we have from Rancho Capistrano. That's in southern Orange County. And what we learned is a couple things. 36% of people aren't married in their late 30s. But we're after, like I said earlier, we're after a certain demographic of who we are as a church. Like, that's what unifies all of our campuses. It's not our demographic psychographics. It's some non-negotiables I'll tell you about. But I think you mentioned it before. You can do an analysis of your community, and you're going, and you miss out who your community is. Why? Because people change. Culture changes. So we do this about every year and a half. We're reassessing. Make sure, okay, are we still on? Do we need to adjust? And you find out who the community is. Does that make sense, everybody? Right? And so ours are like 30 pages, and it's all stats, story, spirituality. Then we do an executive summary. So the first page is executive summary for the pastor. The rest is for everyone else on the team that really wants to look at the details, right? And so even with our target, we want to give this to the campus pastors. We have to adjust how we're delivering this information. If it's just 30 pages of stats, we're going to lose every campus pastor we've got. So again, every year and a half, we're recreating this so that we're staying relevant to that community. What's that? Yeah, about a year and a half. We just want to keep a pulse. We want to be proactive, right? If we see anything that's little change, well, of course, we'll move in, move out. That's okay. So it's not about adjusting, and you never have a brand, right? You want to be consistent with your brand. But we want to make sure, like, all right, are we on target with reaching to our community? Man, this whole new development came in last year, and now we have all these young families moving into 2 blocks away, but we're still going on a strategy that are the people that have been there for 20 years or what have you. So for us, it's just a pulse. That's all that is. Not mandatory. I mean, a year and a half is just because we have the bandwidth to do it. I would say just do it on a regular basis, otherwise you're going to find yourself you're going to be irrelevant, right? All right, so once we do a city profile, for every campus, we create an audience profile, right? So we have demographics from the reports that we do. We have psychographics, spirituality. So we do this for every one of our campuses when we're launching a campus to find out who are we talking about. That first column is a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter where you're at. Yeah. So what he was asking is, we name this person. So if you've read Purpose Driven Church, you're the guy with the pager, come on. Saddleback Sam, that's who Saddleback Sam was. If we were still targeting that guy, I mean, there are still some non-negotiables that don't change, but there's some things that we have to update. We have to constantly change because there's new technology coming out, new communication methods. But these are non-negotiable. So all of our campuses, this is what unifies every single Saddleback campus. We'll go through what those are in a second. And what we do from this audience profile is we create this one-page, easy reference guide, and we give them a name. So this is South Manila, when we launched South Manila. And Sam and Samantha, are you going to go back one real quick? Sam and Samantha wouldn't work in South Manila, so we call them Saddleback Manny and Saddleback Mina. Right? You gotta give them a name. And why you do that? Like, I know you got Freedom Freddy. Is that what it is? Freedom Freddy's here. You name them because here's why. They're a person. So when my creative team, we create strategy and we say, hey, we're looking to do this for Easter, Christmas, or whatever, and the creative team comes back and they're showing us stuff. Their question is not, hey, Christan, you think this looks cool? It's like, yeah, it looks cool. But that's not the question they asked me. They asked like, hey, all right, take into account who Saddleback Sam is. This is why we took this approach. It's more masculine than feminine. We think that it still resonates with somebody that's got young kids, young professional. So they asked, like, what was Saddleback Sam? Because I got preferences. I can have an opinion on anything. Ask my wife. But I don't need to have my opinion. It doesn't represent my community or everybody else. That's my opinion. And the problem is, if you don't establish that at your church or in your business, you're going to show up doing what you like, and you're going to have people that look just like you and act like you, and you probably aren't the best representation of your community if you're not mindful. So like a good example in the marketplace is, I don't know, it always seems like it's like the downtown store. You've got that one downtown store in any city where you walk by and they've got like a dress in the window, but you can buy candy, some knickknacks. It's like, what the heck? What kind of store is this? Well, they have all the same resources as their next door neighbor, business-wise. But what separates them is, are they reaching an audience? Maybe, but those stores scream to me that they're not being strategic and they're getting stuff that they like. Oh, I like these pillows. I like this dress. Oh, these suspenders are cool. I like shoelaces, candy. So you have like a hodgepodge that's just kind of like, who buys? Like, if you're for everybody, you're really for nobody. I like to think of the analogy of like sunlight. If you are outside for too long, you get sunburn. But that's going to take a little bit of time. unless you're super white. Take you quick. But if you use a magnifying glass to focus that light, that same light that's going to burn your skin after a few hours, you can do it within milliseconds. You can burn down cancer. You can burn through anything, right? If you have enough light source, you can burn through anything. So, bringing it back here, we assess our audience, but it's not just about that. We name them so that we're constantly remembering, and if you can put a face to the name in your mind of like, okay, that's Saddleback Sam. My picture is going to stay pretty much consistent, but I'm going to keep checking in, make sure they're still who they are. That's why I give a name. So what are those non-negotiables? We're after the male that's married, with kids, educated. We like diversity because heaven is going to be every language, right? Unchurched, dechurched. So when we go into an area, we do not want church transitioners. They're like, ooh, let me go over here. I already go to church. We don't want you, right? We want to be fishers of men, not fishers of other fish tanks, right? We want the non-believer. That's who we're after. But sometimes we're perceived as, oh, you're going to take my people, other churches. So we try to partner, like let people know we're coming to town, you know? It's funny, we did one campus recently in Yorba Belinda, and the church called Friends Church. If I was a business, I would come in and say, we're more than friends, we're family, right? And I would take all their people. How is that serving the church? That's serving me and my agenda and my denomination and me. You're missing out. We're not called for anything other than a non-believer, okay? So for us, we're the unchurched, dechurched. You got to know who you're after, and that doesn't change. What does change is a young professional. That's relative. Rancho Capistrano, you're going to be in your late 30s for a young professional, get into your profession. In Manila, I think it was closer to 30. So your method has to change a little bit when you're creating a picture of who those people are. Okay, but those don't change. The information changes in the picture you make of somebody. Again, the next slide we're talking about reaching your audience. And so when we went and launched in Manila, we were assessing the audience, and we noticed that the communities that we were going into, and I think it's broader than the community, they shorten everything. It's like if you want to go to the mall, instead of like, we would say, hey, do you want to go to the mall? Well, we wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean. Hey, you want to go to a driving range? I don't know. Shooting range? I don't know. They don't say that. They'll say like, hey, you want to go mauling? So they shorten it. So what we saw were some people were asking, on billboards and such, unlimited minutes. And so we're like, what does that unlimited minutes mean? That's what the words that they use, unlimited minutes. So we're like, unli? So we found out because we knew the community. We partnered with people in the community. They're like, oh yeah, we shorten everything. Too many words. So we're like, all right, well, we know we're about love. What about unli love? Nobody's saying that. So our whole campaign was about unli love. And we had a successful launch. It was great. But if we would have just simply changed unlimited love, they'd be like, oh, it's those Americans over here trying to get over here, right? We had to speak their language. We didn't dilute anything. We just changed our method of communicating based on how they hear, how they communicate, most importantly. All right, so how many of you guys have read, or gals have read Purpose-Driven Church? Because Justice said a couple of you guys have read some of that. So those that have read it, and if you haven't read it, man, not because I go to Saddleback and I'm part of Saddleback, maybe a little skewed, but one thing that drew me to Saddleback when I first was doing orientation, they gave me the abridged version of Purpose-Driven Church. So that actually came out before Purpose-Driven Life, which is a crazy book. Anyways, so Purpose-Driven Church. The reason why I liked it so much, it put it in a practical way, and he has these concentric circles. And the whole purpose, it looks like a target. If you flip it on the side, it's just a funnel. For me, looking at it from a marketing sense, I'm like, oh, that's just like a funnel. But you made it nice because it's a target. So what they are, on the next slide, so you have your community, your crowd, your congregation, committed, core, commission. There's two models that we unify in everything we do, all ministries, including marketing. We have these concentric circles. We'll start calling it a funnel. We have this funnel that identifies who we're after and what we're doing. So, Rick back in the day came up with the class system. Class 101, that's membership. Be a part of the family. 201, spiritual health. Like, are you tithing? Are you doing quiet time? 301, hey, are you serving? Let me equip you. 401, go on a mission trip. Reach your community. It doesn't have to be overseas. Do something in your community. Get out there and do it. And I'll show how those tie in here in a second. But we look at each of these stages as there's a different audience. Okay, so most people stop at the idea of Saddleback Sam of like, oh, I know who Saddleback Sam is. But you got to take it a step further because Saddleback Sam, for us, in the community, is unchurched. It doesn't know God. So I'm focusing my efforts in a way that is come and see. The community for us is anybody that's not ever been to a weekend or to an event. They're just people that are in your community. We have not had any impact or touch with you. That's our community. Our crowd, if you come in on a weekend. That's cool. That's your next step. When we look at our audience, we're only focusing on where are they to the best of our ability. I'm not talking about spiritually, I'm talking about behavior. Right? That whole class system, someone can go through the whole class system and have no life transformation. Guess what? I'm not going to be accountable for that because I'm giving you the tools for life transformation. I'm teaching you how to have quiet time and what you should do as a believer. Now that you got your ticket, you're going to heaven, that's not it. We got a couple more steps to go. It's not the pastor's job only to witness. That's your responsibility. So let's get there. That's where we're going. Right now, you accepted Christ. Have you been baptized? We're worried about the next step only. And the reason why I like it, because I got a sales marketing background, is I was like, oh my gosh, that's like totally like a sales funnel, but for the church world. We don't describe it that way, but to me, that's what it is. So anyways, it's knowing your audience and who they are. Because again, in our community, Saddleback Sam is a young professional with young kids, married. By the time they get down to commission, man, that could take 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. I'm not in charge of that. That's the Holy Spirit's job to move people through. My job is just to tell you what your next step is to do. So I have to know who you are at that stage. So we're evaluating what I showed you, those demographics, that is this top of the funnel. Data will tell you who your audience is for the rest. Because once you get into the crowd, you've come on a weekend. We try to push like, hey, just let us know who you are. Meet us at the patio. We've got a cool coffee mug for you, It's not to try to get, the whole purpose of trying to do something that is easy for people to like engage with us so that we can get information. Because we don't just hand stuff away. We make sure we have our best extroverted people that know Jesus at the I'm new section. So when someone comes up, they're like, hey, I'm new. I heard you got a free gift for me. It's like, oh, yeah, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Oh, you're a believer, and you're from another town, and you're just coming to see our building. Cool. All right, man. Well, we keep these for people that don't know Jesus. Like, we want people that are new here that don't know Jesus. That's what we're about, right? Man, take that to your church. Go. Bye, see ya. We're not attracting. We don't want people that are just visitors and coming in because they're not going to join our community. Now, we're not rude. We'll probably give it to them if we're feeling like it or whatever. But that's not our goal, right? We don't want to waste the time on somebody that already knows Jesus. I mean, at that stage, if someone's out of town. Now, if someone's in town and they're like, hey, I'm new here. I just moved here. It's like, oh, man, what town do you live in? Hey, do you know Justice? He lives over here. We want to connect with them. So it's not that's not a blanket statement of we don't care about non-believers, because we do. But what I mean in the context, if somebody's telling me they're just visiting for one weekend out of town and they're never going to come back, it's like, don't spend 30 minutes talking to that person unless you have the time. Or we have backup, we have backfill, we have tons of volunteers to help out. So, we love everybody, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. We want to communicate because the thing is like our brand extends past our community. And unfortunately, because our pastor is so forward facing, right? We don't want any opportunity to give a wrong impression of who we are. And there's extra pressure. I mean, people are posting stuff about him all the time that's just not true. But can't fight all of it. You shouldn't. All right, so crowd means you're coming in to a weekend. The congregation is this right here. We want the crowd. Well, for the first audience, we're saying come and see, come on a weekend. The crowd, join the family. To get this step, how do we know that you're in our congregation versus our crowd? If you've taken class 101. And to be a member actually means something. And you sign something at the end of it that holds you accountable, that you're saying like, don't sign it. When we say at the end of class, like, hey, don't sign this if you're not really going to follow through with this. We want you to sign this saying like you've given your life to Christ. Like, when did you do that? Tell me your story. Have you been baptized? You got to be part of this family. Like, we believe that you need to be immersed in water. We're going to do it right now. You want to go? And until you don't do it, you can take 201, but you're still, in our mind, we're still pushing you to get baptized. We're not pushing you to 201. We're pushing you to do the step that we want. So you can still go through. We're not going to stop you if you want to even jump into 301 at the middle and then just to check it out. You're still going to hear from us anytime we communicate. We haven't been baptized. Yeah, do you understand what that is? Okay, so congregation, then we have the committed 201, 301, 401, right? So those are the next steps that we push people to. In knowing who you're talking to, so once you identify who you're talking to, that's those healthy channels I was talking about, those communication channels. There might be overlap of how you communicate with people in these different segments of where they're at, but not always. Right on the bulletin, there's some things that we're not going to talk about. Like if there's a financial meeting about something, well, we don't do those, but if we were to, we're not going to put it in a bulletin that's targeting people to go to join the family, right? The church I came from, every single Sunday, we put the budget on the back of the bulletin, and that drove me crazy because we were saying we're reaching the world one person at a time as we learn to think, love, and live like Jesus. One person at a time, so they're coming in, and we're talking about our finances and our budget and how we're below, and there's emergencies there. Like that's communicating something to the wrong people. So that communication channel for that information is, in my opinion, isn't right. So not all communication channels are appropriate in certain audiences. So you want to deliver the right message in the right place at the right time. And that's all based on who your people are and what you know about them. And the thing is, like, there's so many platforms out there that are free or cheap. I mean, MailChimp, until you get a certain amount of subscribers, that stuff is free. You can do amazing things with their email platform. Planning Center Online, they give you a free database for your church so you can track who people are and information about them. A lot of people use it specifically for their worship service and the organizing the flow of the service. They have different modules though, but they have a free one called Planning Center People. That's a free service for you. Okay, so anyways, so the next slide. Once you have identified all of your audiences, you got to make goals for them. Is it go to the next slide? Yeah. So for every single stage of your audience, like, okay, what's the goal? Well, first, our goal if you're in the community is like, come on a weekend. Or we're very strategic in when we do events. If we do an event, a requirement is you do it on a weekend and you do it around a service. We're not in to have these flash in the pan, let me get 1,000 people somewhere for the sake of getting 1,000 people, right? That's a dead end. Like maybe they're going to see something. We want our events to tie into something that our members and attenders can bring their family. That's a low bar, like a 4th of July party. But we do it around a weekend. There's some stuff we do in the community, but primarily we focus on, if you do it on the weekend, then there's an opportunity for them to hear the message or the music. We pump music outside because there's people outside of our patio. So we're in Southern California, right? So we have seating outside because the people that don't feel comfortable because they're de-churched, meaning they used to come to church, they don't come anymore, they do not want to walk through these doors because they're afraid you're going to make them stand up and say their name in front of everybody, right? So for us, we know, I mean, it's funny. You can go out and you see people that will do it for years that are sitting in the patio. So a few of us that love talking, we kind of cruise on the patio, and that's like my favorite time. So I just like sit next to them, say, in between time, like, oh, that was cool, huh? Hey, try to show a familiar face because I'm like, oh man, it's the game in my mind. I want you to get inside there because I know if you're consistently sitting out here by yourself, or you'll see where the wife goes in and the husband's sitting out, then you know, like, okay, man, that they're like new, or they're just not comfortable yet. So you got to make them feel comfortable. Another thing that we do, which is funny, is on weekends we have coffee, and we give it for free. And here's why: because we want people to hang around. So if I'm just a guy that came by myself, or a girl, doesn't matter, and I'm standing, let's say I'm a 6 foot, $250 or 250 pound guy standing on the patio. If I'm just standing like this, that's kind of awkward and I'm creepy, right? But as soon as you give them something, and they're on a patio, they're like this. They start drinking. As soon as you see them, it's like, this little piece of cup protects them and makes them feel like, oh yeah, hey, Isn't that great? So that's why we do it. But we want to know, going back to this, identify the goals for each of your categories, okay? So for us, if you're in the community, come on a weekend. We do a lot of things that push that because we're trying to get new believers, and we're trying to push people down. The reality is, if you're coming to church and you're not taking the next step, you're wasting a seat, right? That's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if you just come on a weekend, you're not engaging our community, you're missing it. So we have to show, tell, invite people to our community. What are we doing? The other thing is, when you know those goals, when you know your goals and your audience, that's what shapes your content. You can think of great content, have awesome content, but if you're not keeping the goal in mind, you just have good content and you're not reaching anybody or reaching who you want to, which the Facebook social shares that you're saying aren't engaging people. It could be that they're just not, the content isn't right for the audience. It could be as simple as that. All right, so brand, you guys with me? I'm kind of just cramming a bunch of stuff. This, just to remind you, is the beginning of a conversation. Okay? I love questions. We're going to do Q&A here in a second. But it's like a fire hydrant. I was like, literally was up last night texting Justice. I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm supposed to share some of this stuff. I don't know who for, but I might pull in slides together. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this, if I was starting a church, or I've only been in church for a couple years, or hit a plateau, like this is what I would want to know, because I was there and I heard it and I was like, just like the Dave Ramsey analogy I gave, it's like, oh, it's kind of like common sense, but like, where do you even get like demographics? Like, I don't even know how to do that kind of stuff because I like just talking, right? I had to learn that stuff. And there's tons of tools out there. So for brand, what is our brand, Saddleback's brand? Again, there's 4 pillars of your brand. Those are product, your identity, experience, and culture. Product, what you do. So what do? Our brand, Saddleback's brand, we're practical, right? Rick is like a mastermind of making things practical. Because our weekend is focused on and targeted to our community. If you just come on a weekend, that's just one piece of what being a believer is. That's not what it's about. I keep saying butts in the seats because I feel like, I keep saying that over and over and over because I feel like when I talk to churches, that's what their goal is. Their goal is to get butts in the seats. Like, that's not a community. People can hide even in a church of 200 people, and they can remain anonymous. So it's not the size that should determine that. So anyways, we're practical, transformational, inspirational, and hopeful. Like if you just come to church, again, this is one pillar. So let's say we hit the mark on all of these. You feel inspired, it's practical. Great. Well, that's only 1/4 of our brand, but it's crucial to our brand. So our weekends, you'll see us being practical, transformational on everything we do and how we communicate. We want to be inspiring, right? Then your identity. It's what you look like. We are a family. Okay, we have a family at one of our campuses of 20,000 people. So how do you make that a family? We like to hide how big we are. So very sporadically, maybe through a video of like Easter when we're outside and stuff, we'll show the building. But we primarily want you to feel like we're not just this big Costco or people look at us as Disneyland. I hate that, although it is fun. No, we're a family. That's insulting. And if you start showing up to the same service every single week, you're going to start seeing the same faces. If you want to hide, you can hide. But we're going to ask you not to. And we ask people from stage like, hey, make sure you're consistent when you come because you don't want to get to know your neighbors. Sit in the same section, you know? And if you're like my wife, when they want you to stand up and shake everybody's hands, perfect time to go get coffee. So we're a family. We're diverse. How are we diverse? Well, in all those demographic areas, right? Doesn't matter how much you make, what color of skin you have, what's your age. We show that. So when we show ads, we want to show people that we're more than just Rick Warren. That's just one communicator on our team. So on our stage, when we sing, we have diversity, age, ethnicity, backgrounds. I love what we've been doing because with the worship team, John Cassetto has really changed the culture of how we do worship. And we've been doing a lot of things in Spanish because we know that in our population and our communities, we have Hispanics. And they don't have a lot of places to go. And so we want to bridge that gap. So we do have a service that's all in Spanish. But for those that are in the generation where it's like, well, they're bilingual, we want to nod to them like, hey, we know you because in heaven it's not going to be just English. And if you think that, well, let's talk. So we want to show diversity so that only love, right? We're in a culture where most people look the same, ethnic-wise. So we did a diversity of ages. We're always going to show diversity. Celebratory, in that same photo, I think everybody was like, yay, balloons and stuff. We could have communicated only love any way that we wanted, but we wanted to be fun, kind of cheeky about it. So emotive. All right, experience. What you feel like. Welcoming. We love welcoming, right? We're fun. Personal, caring. So what you feel like is huge. Like for us, our greeters, our experienced team, when they came in about 5 years ago, there were some lifers that have been there. And what I mean by lifers is you have these greeters that have been there forever, and they're like, this is my square. New guy, don't you even come near my square, because this is my square. You know what I'm talking about? Those people where it's like, you're in the same spot every single time, and you're grumpy. Do you even like what you're doing? Why? It doesn't make any sense. So we've changed that culture. We want people that are welcoming. And you don't have to be the extrovert like, hey, everybody, look at me. Hey, welcome, because that's annoying. We want people that are just friendly. We want to show diversity. We want to do fun. So fun is part of our brand, and so we've done a couple things. And so, we're trying this out. Probably last year, those pop signs. You guys know what I'm talking about? They're like this size. Looks like a cardboard piece. It's like, welcome. It's like, do I personally like it? No. But what we're saying is that's part of our brand. We're seeing that people are sharing those types of photos. So we're like, okay, well, Saddleback Sam qualifies. I don't like it. I think it's kind of weird. That's okay because it's effective. Another thing we did is, remember last year, gosh, maybe now it's been 2 years ago. And I think it was last year, Pokemon Go came out. You guys remember that? My kids were like, Pokemon Go, Dad, get this app. It's like, what the heck is a Pokemon? I didn't know what that was. And so being curious as I am, I download the app, and I join the yellow team. I don't even know what that means. And I noticed there's these two, what are they called? Those Pokestops. And gyms, no, two G-Y-M, gyms on our property. And I'm like, who's putting stuff on our property? What the heck? Like, I'm looking at all of our campuses, like, somebody's putting some geotags on our campus, and they got pictures of it. Like, what the heck is going on? And so I'm talking with the marketing team, like, guys, like, we got to shut this thing down. People are going to start coming over here. I was like, wait, what did I say? People are coming here. Wait a second. Are really people coming? Let's go. So I grabbed a couple people and was like, you go to this one. I'm going to go to this one. We're just going to sit back, and we're going to see who's coming. And it was crazy. Like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, people should be in school right now. What are you doing Pokemon Go? It's the same faces, too, that we're seeing. So it's like, all right, this is one of those waves you got to jump on. I don't even know what the heck this is, but I'm like, put a brand together, that's going to target these people that we're going to tell everybody we've got Poke gyms and Pokestops on our campus. It'll be like 4 Poke spots that you collect stuff, and a gym is where people battle, so they stay there longer. And I think if you're a Pokemon Go, sorry, I might be botching what the purpose of this, but the point is, because we're fun and we're welcoming, and we want to include people that are from our community, we embraced it. We literally made a page, a Pokemon page, Pokemon Go page, and did some SEO on it. We didn't see much action from it, but it was like, worth a try. So what we started doing is we started bringing extension cords and charging stations for phones where they were going to be standing, because it's a radius, probably like 20 feet, to get into, you have to be within proximity to take advantage of the things you get on an app. And the whole point of the app is to get Pokemon, capture Pokemon. And they pop up, and I don't know how, but not sure how it all works, but we knew the people were coming. So it's like, all right, who are all the extroverts that will probably jump on this thing? Because it's like, hey, you want to come tonight? There's going to be a lot of people to talk to. It's like, what is it? Oh, we're going to do a hot cocoa, s'mores. We're just going to kind of just meet people in the community. All right, who are these people? I don't know. Didn't know there'd be like, it was dads, it was moms, it was kids, teenagers that were coming, literally 200 people at one time. Because what we did is you can pay a couple bucks, $10 or $5 in the app, and it does something special called a lure, draws more Pokemon. And those at the time were, you have to pay. So nobody wants to pay. It's a free game. So we paid. We invested $20 at a time. So for hours, people can see it because it's a map. This app is an app, and you can see where they're at. People are driving miles just to come. And now they're on our campus, and I'm like, yes, get the signs out. What's the next thing we're doing on the weekend? Like, what can we communicate? These are people in the community. So we had to change a little bit of our strategy, because it was people from our community that hadn't heard from us, where typically it's people that we would consider a crowd that's coming on a weekend because we already talked to them. So we had to adjust on the fly. We gave waters on hot days, umbrellas, did s'mores, ice cream, and then we started promoting these events on Eventbrite and everything else. It was all by accident because I was curious, because we're fun. We want to be personal. So we also realized through that, everybody's on their phone like this. Well, if it's just fun, not inviting and everything, it'd be kind of everybody just shows up, just like an event. So we were very strategic. We had tables, and we put where we want people to go. Come on a weekend. Hey, on the weekend, we're going to do this next event. We had people that can communicate. Hey, what's your name? Culture. How do we do it? Grace. We do everything through love, passion, and faith. Are you guys with me? Okay, we're going to cruise to this next part. So assess your audience. That's how we do it with the audience profile, the city profile first. Building your brand. So there's the 4 pillars. You got to make sure they're in balance. You're never going to be perfect. And so how do you balance when somebody's leaving you bad comments? Equip your people with being advocates. So that voice is louder. You're always going to have somebody that's not happy. Okay, so community. How do we do community? All right, well, we have our audience that's informing our brand. We're going to go through these next slides pretty quick. An audience that informs a brand, you got to keep looking back at your audience to make sure that you're still on and reevaluating that, like we talked about before, right? Well, through that, it creates community, right? We're welcoming you, inviting you to something. What's greatly important, why you want to keep readdressing, it's kind of what you were saying in the last session. If you break this cycle, this is just going to stay stagnant, and it's going to be the same people. Now you're a holy huddle. You're just about yourself. Or you're not about yourself, and you're not reaching out further like you could, or you're relevant. So there's many implications to that. So reevaluate that often. And what is that circle? Well, remember the concentric circles I told you about? This is one of those tiers, just flipped on the side now. So how do we do this? So we start with, in the, let's say, community right now. First, we got to connect with you. Now we know you. Okay, what? We got to connect with you. So we're going to connect with you. Once we know how to connect with you, because we've done our audience insights and just doing the best that we know, understanding who our audience is, then we communicate with them. You can't communicate with people before connecting with them, because that goes back to what I was saying. You got to know how to speak to them. And if you're starting off with your own agenda of like, okay, I rehearsed this, I'm going to talk about blah, 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 you're missing. You might be able to capture people, but it's going to be a long hill to climb. Connect. Once you communicate, that's where ministry comes in. Now you're caring. You've connected with people because you know what their needs are. You've communicated, hey, I hear your need. Come on, come and see. I can help you with this need. But it doesn't stop there. Then we're calling you. What are we calling you to? The next level of commitment. Using the Jesus model. We're not turning up the heat all the way, come and die. It's like slow increments. Slow. Every time we ask you to do something, we're turning up the heat of commitment. And we'll get relentless. Because we're asking, after you take a class, you're giving us permission. We're asking for permission to hold you accountable for that. Again, if they don't, that's not my job. My job is to communicate and inspire you to take the next step. Okay, so then after that, what are you calling them to? You're calling them to the next circle of commitment. It just goes and goes and goes. It's a spiral. You keep calling people to the next level of commitment. And all that is, flipped up on its side, is our funnel. Our goal through evangelism, right? So over here I told like community, that's evangelism. The 5 purposes, Great Commission, Great Commandment, that's what the purpose-driven church model is all about. A balance of the 5 purposes. So evangelism, what that looks like, evangelize people in your community. Worship and crowd. House to house, temple courts, right? Fellowship in your congregation, you're together. Discipleship, ministry. So again, that's 101, 201, 301, 401. So that's how these two tie together. Sometimes you can go through the Purpose-Driven Church book and not really see how the bases of the diamond of class 101 and 201, 301, 4, how does that model tie into our concentric circles, and this is it. Crucial. All right, so we've got one more slide here. So going back to connect, communicate, care, call. When you connect with people and communicate, that's the marketing side. All the stuff we've been talking about today. You're trying to find out who you're talking to and how to communicate. That's the game. It's the ministry where you're actually caring. That's where it's at. And if you're just talking about it, but you're not fulfilling that, then you're just advertising. If you stop any of these stops and you don't keep going, you think you've arrived. And with our funnel, I know I made it a funnel and there's concentric circles, but the commission, the inside is like, all right, you're not done. You didn't arrive. You're going to walk with somebody else. and go through. And about every few years, you should probably go through the whole process again, just to remind yourself what you committed to, what we've learned along the way, and bring someone with you, because we're a family, right? I already know how to ride a bike, but I'm not going to sit my kid on a bike and just say, figure it out. No, I'm going to run behind him and make sure that he knows how to ride, even if he has training wheels, to make sure that my boy feels safe. Then I'm going to let him go. Then we're going to take those training wheels off, and then I'm going to back all over it, right? I'm not just sending people to do something that they can do on their own by themselves, because we're a family. Okay. I shared a lot of stuff. Here's my information, just as a reminder. Christan at saddleback.com. Truly, I mean that. I know that people all the time are like, yeah, hey, let's hang out sometime. Yeah, okay, you just say that. No, genuinely, I care. I care about the church. It doesn't have to be Saddleback for me to use the gifts that God's given me. You know, it's funny, actually, we talked about that when we met that day. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I was like, I'm at Saddleback right now. But if God called me somewhere else, like, I'm about the big C. And right now, I'm at Saddleback for such a time as this.